Welcome to our viewers and welcome council and gallery members to the March 11th regular council meeting. I call the meeting to order at 1 p.m. and I ask council if they have any added items. All right, seeing none then, I'll ask for an adoption of the agenda as presented. Yes, Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I'd make the motion that the regular and closed council meeting agenda for Monday, March 11, 2024 at 1 p.m. be adopted as presented.
Thank you. As you will note if you're in viewing, we do have a quorum. We do have 3 elected officials away for this meeting. However, we do have a quorum. So we will move forward. All those in favor? That is carried. Looking for consent, please, for our previous council meeting minutes from February 26th. We have consent, so we will move forward to page 7 of your agenda, item 3A. Today, we have a guest, a delegation. Our Member of Parliament, Mr. Earl Dreeshen, is here, and I'd ask him if he'd like to approach the podium. Welcome, Earl.
Well, thank you very much, and it's always an honor for me to be here to be able to speak to the Olds Council and to the people of Olds, and I know that you represent them and represent them well, so I appreciate that. I just wanted to give you a few little updates. I know that there was a comment about the flags being at half-mast, and that, of course, is because there will be a state funeral for the Right Honourable Brian Mulrooney next Saturday, and on the 24th, I should say, and with that, so he'll be lying in state next week in Ottawa, and then heading to Montreal for the funeral. So it is something that it's a historical thing for those of us that have made politics part of our lives. We recognize that. The unending of an era, and I think there's a lot of people that have reflected on various aspects of that. So at this point in time, I'm still on the Natural Resources Committee, and we have been studying a number of different pieces of legislation, one of which is called C-48, which has to do with the resource development off of the Maritimes. And the issue and problem that we have with that is that there are 33 references in that legislation to that which was deemed unconstitutional in Bill C-69. And so we've been trying to get the government to focus on the unconstitutionality portion first, and before we move ahead with legislation that may well be challenged afterwards itself. So, the process is slower. I know that I have traded off with some of my maritime partners, and so I've been doing a little bit of time in fisheries and so on as they've been speaking on behalf of their people. Again, the intent, where they want to go, the provinces are saying, well, if this all works, it's fine, we're happy to have some, we are prepared to have some sort of limitation and direction as to how this development will take place. But they are also nervous because there are a lot of little checks there that are saying, well, if the government chooses, and both provincial and federal choose, then maybe some of these developments are going to not occur. And of course, that's an issue that each of them look at and have to weigh. So that on the legislative side, that has been one of the major issues that I've been dealing with. There've been a lot of different delegations and groups. One is the Canadian Association of Rare Disorders, and so being able to discuss issues with them as to how to get research dollars into medical research dollars and coordination in the international level when we see these types of issues occur. So that's another issue that has been on our plate for the last little bit, and things that we've been looking at. Other than that, there hasn't been, I guess the way to say this is that we have been dealing with many issues that have come out from the Auditor General's reports. We have had other commissioners that have sent in reports, and there seems to be no end of issues and concerns there. And in many people's minds, it are scandals. And so that is what we have been attempting to litigate as we go through our legislation and in our discussions in Parliament. It is of major concern, but we hopefully we'll be able to deal with some of the other issues that come up. That being said, in April will be the budget, and so issues that you have brought up in the past and that other groups have talked about, we hope are going to be addressed there. It does look as though the concept of being concerned about deficits seems to have passed them by once again. So that's going to be one of those issues that we will have to push. So that's more or less a kind of a quick report of where we are at. It does look as though the agreement that the government has with the NDP is still holding. It was at first simply going to be to hold the government account in the House of Commons, but it has now gotten to the point where when we discuss the scandal issues, that they are saying, no, we don't want to bring anybody in to ask them questions, for no witnesses. And so there are ways around it. It takes a lot more time, but that's really where their agreement has gotten to now, where they're saying, okay, no, we have to hold these guys up, and if they ask us to stop looking into these investigations, that they're prepared to do that. So that's where we're at. The latest sort of demand that they had was they hope to see some kind of a full national school free lunch program. So that's the NDP's plan there. And of course the Liberals will say, well, we can't say, we'd have to wait until the budget comes and go from there. So it'll be probably like their declaration on pharmacare, where they really didn't say anything. They just said, well, we'll maybe take a couple of items here that they know that people are concerned about, and we're going to start coming up with a way of discussing with other groups how we can incorporate all of this. So that's sort of what they are. This is as much as the NDP are getting out of this agreement, but the government at the time is getting that certain level of security, and so it goes until that time. And I guess the time now is ticking, because if there's no election called before April 22nd, then we will be doing the new boundaries after that. And we've had discussions in that regard. So they have two buttons to press. One that gives them maps based on prior to April 22nd, and the one for the new maps based on after April 22nd. So we'll see how that goes. So anyway, that's the report, so I'm happy to take any questions that people might have.
That's very interesting. Does anybody wish to ask a question at this time? I'll start with Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Just a question for Mr. Dreeshen around judicial reform and bail reform. And I know there's been, I think, some recent changes. I don't know, the Bill C-48 and reverse onus and so on. Just curious what your thought is, what the Conservative Party's thought is around what more needs to be done, what other measures you'd like to see in that judicial law bail reform to further enhance protection, I guess, for citizens and help support our law enforcement people.
Well, there's a lot of different levels that we have based on that. And the one is to make sure that we have judges that the judicial system has the capacity, to manage those that are, that should be incarcerated, but nevertheless to have the time to sit before a judge. So that's the first part, because what we see is everything being clogged up, and once that's clogged up, then it's easier to say, well, let's come up with some sort of an approach as far as bail is concerned. So those things kind of go hand in hand. So if you ask what are we looking at as far as have an all-encompassing view of how to address that, that becomes one of the first issues. So look at that. And the second is, is to make sure that those that if the judge has granted them bail, and that's the way in which it goes, but if they are repeat offenders, that we have some legislation that is going to keep them off the streets, and it's not going to make it so easy, for that to continue. So that's really where we are at this point in time. We've been trying to do a lot of different things through private members' bills, legislation, and so on. So we've got there's been a massive increase in car thefts, and it's just they take them, they get them on the ship, and they're being moved into into someplace in the Middle East. It's just rampant. But so again, we need to put some more teeth into that type of legislation. There's a lot of extortion that is taking place. So these are issues. These are things that we've tried to bring up in private members' legislation, and so it simply gets the discussion, to that level. The logical conclusion of that is it is unlikely that it would end up being passed before the end of this session. However, it does start building a bit of a library of things that could be done if you had to come up with some, omnibus legal legislation. So that's that's kind of where we're at that.
Thank you. I believe our CAO would like to ask a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Dallin. Thank you, Mr. Dreeshen, for being here. On the natural resources tract, not sure if you heard the news, I believe Friday, but Fort McKay First Nation has announced a partnership with Suncor to explore the first greenfield development for an oil sands site since probably 2006, perhaps. And then further south, obviously, we just had the moratorium lifted with new rules by the provincial government for solar, wind, and geothermal. I was wondering just your opinion on the idea of large-scale greenfield development right now, given the National Energy Board's a new name now. I know, I can't remember quite what it's called, but it doesn't seem to be an environment conducive to large-scale new energy projects, and whether it be how you see that working with the current committee in government or with the Conservatives, should they form government, supporting such initiatives.
I suppose what I will say is what I have mentioned constantly. I believe in the environment. I believe that that we must do all that we can to keep our water and our air and our land so that it can be productive and helpful for everyone. I just do not see that as being measured in the development area of new technology. And when I say that is because I'm a firm believer that you have to measure the inputs from the first shovel you use to dig something up till the last shovel you use to cover it up. And so when you start, if we want to talk about batteries and all the different rare earth minerals or the minerals that would be required for Canada to be able to develop its own battery supply, we know how difficult it is to get somebody to go and dig up around the mountains to kind of scrape off a little bit of earth. What's going to happen when you're going into somebody else's backyard and saying, okay, now we need 20 square miles that we're going to rip up, or we got to go here and here. The mining industry, they produce lots of jobs and so on, but people forget that you can't take these minerals that you have in the rocks and just separate them. You need to use chemicals and harsh chemicals in order to make that happen. Do you have a plan as to what you're going to deal with all of these things? So when I look at what are we going to get, well, we know where we can get them because we know that the majority of the production, the majority of the source is in China or controlled by China and other places in the world. So at the present time, if we push the major electrification by 2030 and all of these other things that are being said, we have no other source other than to bring it in through China. It would take 10 to 15 years to be able to develop what we need in the mining sector in order to get to the stage where we could even say, okay, now we're competitive. However, we cannot be competitive in that other region. So that is part of it. When it takes 500,000 pounds of earth moved to create a 1,000-pound battery for one vehicle, that doesn't happen without using other energy. And what other energy do we have? But we have fossil fuels that are going to be able to move that. So the arguments of nuclear are the only ones that would come close to being able to generate that kind of electricity, so that you could, if you already had those batteries magically built, that you could put into the units that would do the excavating. That's a possibility. So my argument has always been, you can show me how much energy it is required, how much disruption of the earth is required, how much the transmission of that energy is going to be as you move from one place to another. And then you want to compare that to what we presently have when we have internal combustion engines. I think then that sort of puts the discussion into a fair way of measuring it. And if we don't, then we are looking at somebody saying, well, this sounds like a great idea, but if nobody wants to look at what the actual environmental impacts are. And the other thing that I say is, because you can tell by the names that they use. So if they call it tar sands, you know where their mind is. If they call it the oil sands, then you understand that at least they recognize what kind of a product that you're dealing with and what you're taking out of it. But I've been up there, and I've seen the pit. If you imagine that pit similar to the mining pits that you would see, when they're finished, and you turn around 180 degrees and you see what they've been doing for the last 20, 40, 60 years, that's what environmentalists do. And that's what happens. The rest of it is for a different design.
Much on that answer. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, and through you to Mr. Dreeshen, and thank you for being here today, Mr. Dreeshen. Last year, I know there was significant funding that came through the federal government for drought, particularly for livestock producers and agriculture. Do you know if there's going to be continued funding this year? Alberta's facing a potential drought this year, which could be significant.
Usually when that comes through, there are some cases where it's strictly federal, but in most cases it's something that works through the province and the federal government through arrangements that they have. I haven't seen what the provincial government's budget is in that area, but I know that there had been some money that had been put into that. I believe that, when it's declared a disaster, then there's a certain level that you have to go through before you get full commitment from the federal government to come in. And and again, in various regions around the country, there was severe drought. Other regions, if you look at the grain prices and so on, you will realize that there are other regions that probably had the best moisture that they've had in years. So that's sort of that hit and miss aspect of it. So therefore, it becomes the municipality's responsibility to have that for their entire jurisdiction, so that they can then make that pitch to the federal government to go from there. So, yeah.
Thank you. I'm just going to jump back to the lunch program with the
There
NDP.
is no free lunch. Oh, sorry, there could be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
there's been a lot of, I've heard a lot of storytelling in regards to the cost of possibly $1 billion for this program. If in fact it went through, have you received a case study yet to find out exactly, like, I feel, I'm from a small community, and I'm pretty well aware of what all the communities around us do. And there's always either a breakfast program or a lunch program already from volunteers in the community, and they're very happy to do it, and they love to be involved that way. I'd be very cautious on saying that everyone was going to get a free lunch when there's definitely a high majority of children that certainly do need it, but to give it to everybody, I'd caution that.
I will take that back. It is very much in tune with that which I believe. It's when you speak to that. I mean, I was in a classroom for 34 years, so I kind of know what the lives are like in the situations. I mean, in some places, and we were able to come up with a cafeteria and so on, and there was opportunities. Actually, there were opportunities for people that didn't have the money to work there and to be able to without stigmatizing, being able to have that. So different communities do that, and it always is of concern to me when the government says, we know best. And the rest of you that have put your heart and soul into these sorts of things, well, that's okay, don't worry. We've got you covered. So.
Thank you very much. You've led us through some nice comments this time, and I do not believe we have any more questions. I believe, okay, Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Just a quick question from Mr. Dreeshen. I thought I recalled a while back your committee had supported or was looking at an electrical grid and electrical strategy. And if I'm wrong, cut me off right now. I'm just wondering if there's any update, and I know locally electricity and electrical generation and pricing is a very hot button topic. The Premier has given Minister Neudorf some direction relative to affordability and distribution rates and everything. Just wondering if there's any, if I'm mistaken, or if there's any update on this kind of overview and a review of the electrical strategy.
We were to have a study on that topic. For most of us, we've looked back and there had been a prior study on this, and I can't remember, 3 or 4 years ago. So the question became, okay, why does this become so urgent? Well, I think there are things that are necessary, but we won't probably be looking at that. And I'm trying to look at our calendar and look at the legislation and the things that we still have that we haven't dealt with. We might be bringing that up, maybe taking a look at it in June or something. But again, that really all that we would manage to get done at that time would be to bring in sort of the experts in the field and maybe some people from various provinces to be able to speak at a high level as to the production and the management of grid systems. I think that's really part of it, because we get little piecemeal stories when we want to talk about electric vehicles. So someone says, yeah, but what are you going to do to your cul-de-sac? Because you get 2 or 3 people doing that, and then you're all kind of out to lunch, right? So there's a lot of that discussion that kind of shows up as whether we're in Environment Committee or whether we're in Natural Resources or Industry, all of that kind of comes in and raises its head there. But I think that we'll be able to, when we study it specifically, then we'll be able to bring those experts, or at least bring that commentary back in and use that as our development.
Thank you. Good information. I'm just in awe still after I heard that the city of Edmonton and all their transit buses over millions and millions of dollars that they're now going to sue, and the guy went bankrupt. So poor.
Well, I
feel
was in Edmonton when we did have electrical buses, so I would get on them, and then when I had to stand beside a diesel one, I felt just at home because I'm kind of used to the smell of diesel. But no, I know what you're talking
trolley
about.
buses.
They were trolley buses.
Yeah,
Yes.
trolley buses are good, but
Yeah,
we're talking something
tricky.
different.
Yeah, I know.
Anyways, thank you very much for your time today, and we look forward to you having a safe trip back for
Thank you.
next week.
Thank you. Okay.
I'd ask for a motion, please, to receive MP's report. Thank you, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that we thank Mr. Dreeshen for being here today and providing information to our council.
Very good. I will then call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. You could just leave that with Marcy if you, thank you. All right, we'll move down. We have item number 4, bylaws. We have no bylaws. Item 5, new business, page 8 of your agenda, and this is item 5A. This is an item that I brought back to council after receiving a letter in regards to the Mountain View County. This has been advertised already throughout the news, and we would like to put speaking with my council as a whole, we would like to put a motion on the floor, and if you have any further questions, then you can certainly ask. So who would like to put this motion on the floor, please? Councillor Walsh?
Yeah, I just, while reading this, I'm going, council agreeing to what? It's amongst ourselves or agreeing to a proposal put forward by MAP? I was questioning what the agree was about.
After speaking to council and receiving some feedback, the dissolution of municipal area partnerships is a formal process that we would be doing, and other municipalities will, once they've all gone, I know there'll be likely a motion in Sundre today, and once we get the results from all the members, we would go through a dissolution process
Okay.
in order to distribute the money.
Okay, so you're just saying that town council, I can make the motion that the town of Old's council are, I just find it awkward to say agree to the dissolution of the MAP when we can't we can't do it ourselves. It's a joint effort. So, yeah, so I would say that you would need to say that the town of Old's council
Would you like to speak to that?
it's just a very awkward thing to say, because we can't dissolve MAP area partnership. We're part of a partnership, so we can do what the county did, withdraw, but we could also, are we asking the rest of the municipalities to dissolve? Is that part of this question?
That's a good comment. In my opinion, yes, we are, because this will be going through each MAP member, but comment from you, CAO Williams?
Thanks, Mayor Dahlia, and I think fair point to Councillor Walsh's comments, concerns. I don't think we're asking other municipalities to dissolve. I do think that we are withdrawing, though. And then the intent behind the motion is really in Marie Valber's letters, in that the county is withdrawing, and as the holder of the funds wish to distribute it as it was set up on that whatever percentage basis. But I think if the council thinks the resolution say that the town of Old Council withdraws from the municipal area partnership, that serves the same purpose.
Okay, that makes sense. It just, yeah, as a council, we cannot dissolve the municipal area partnership. That has to be a recommendation from the municipal area partnership to dissolve, which I could support. But other than that, yeah, I could make the motion that the town of Olds withdraw from the municipal area partnership. And yeah, the MAP committee and the remaining funds, $23,917.27, and the MAP account be distributed based on the same ratio of contributions were made in the fund. That would be, in my mind, be the logical thing to say.
That's absolutely fine. That's very good. Our intention is made there for sure, and once all the municipalities belonging to membership with MAP take this to their councils, and we collectively get together, then we'll be able to disperse the funds, pending on the outcome. So that's the motion on the floor. Thank you very much for that motion, Councillor Walsh. Questions? Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I believe you've answered it, but I will ask it just to confirm. So as of now, there has been only one withdrawal, that being the county from the municipal area partnership, correct?
That is correct. The rest of the mayors within the municipal area partnerships, of course, will be speaking to their councils. I can't speak for other councils. I have heard others that will be, and to date, I have no further information from them, but today we have our old council's decision on the floor. So I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? Thank you very much. We'll definitely keep that on record, and a letter will be sent. Page 10, please. This is the Committee of the Whole Policy Recommendations, item 5B. And we are going to be looking at moving that we receive these policies as reviewed by all council. I'll get a motion on the floor. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council move the following policies have been reviewed with no material changes needed. Sorry about that. So do you want me to list these individually or just as listed? As listed?
For the viewers that don't have agenda in front of them, it would be good to list
Okay,
them.
all right. Policy 107C, elected official member appointments. Policy 108C, civic recognition. Policy 109C, departing members of council. Policy 114C, proclamations, and Policy 124C, death of a current or former member.
Thank you. No further questions? I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. We'll move now to page 20 in your agenda, and this will be the municipal policing priorities. I did receive comments from Councillor Ryan and Councillor Cummings with regards to item 1 out of the 4 priorities, asking to leave at what we came to as a conclusion with council as crime reduction, property crimes. I'd like feedback from the council around the table at this time, and ask for a consensus if you wish to change, or do you have comment? Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I did read this, and the word specifically did kind of bother me, so I'm quite fine with just leaving it crime reduction, property crimes for myself.
Yeah, that was my comment as well. I couldn't remember the word specifically being brought in, so we
No.
will ask for the motion that I'm asking then is to, as amended, and as number 1 would read crime reduction, property crimes. So I will ask for a motion on the floor, please. Councillor Walsh?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council approve the Town of Olds municipal policing priorities for 24-25 as crime reduction, property crimes, community engagement, be clear, accountable, and transparent, encourage citizens to report all crimes, and 3, mental health and violence in relationships, enhance awareness and education, and number 4, promote road safety.
Thank you very much. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Page 23, please, of your agenda. This is our Chief Administrator Officer Williams' report, and I'll hand it over to him.
Thank you again, Mayor Dahl. Just a few things on the screen in the package is the action item list, which just sees one updated item since you've last seen it, and that regards the higher density housing incentive changes that we discussed in closed session a meeting or two ago. and those will come forward in open session for debate, hopefully at the end of the month, but if not, then early April. Second page is also the RAP report for February. As I mentioned in previous iterations of this report, the 3 or 4 bylaw-related topics, animals, parking, speed, more importantly, they're just lagging behind. I do suspect that they are closed off. We use a different collection and reporting method through our Parkland County Dispatch. But other than that, drainage and roads were the primary avenues, things people reported in February, and not surprising given the snowfall, the melt, and the subsequent water issues, but reports are back up, and certainly of much more substance or importance, I would say, that people reporting it are helping us out quite a bit, and we do appreciate that. Then a couple of just quick things. The Mountain View Power Community Grant Program opens today for its first intake of 2024. I do believe it's open for about 4 weeks, closing in early April, and then the grant committee will meet to adjudicate those applications. So we do encourage all local nonprofits, volunteer organizations to have a look to see if there are any projects they would like to fund. And then just update on snow clearing. We are into the yellow and green routes right now. It's going quite well. The weather is cooperating, but we're hoping to get ahead of the inevitable flooding that happens, more minor flooding. So again, if residents have concerns about blocked catch basins or water backing up elsewhere, please let us know via the RAP function, and we do have crews on call 24/7. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Are you finding your crews are noticing that most of the snow has melted rather than snow plowing or clearing and then work towards the water flooding instead?
Not yet. They're kind of one and the same right now, just because a lot of catch basins are covered in snow. So the work that they're doing is certainly on streets. Now that we're moving off of red routes, streets that do have drainage issues, and we all know what areas those tends to be. So we do have to do proactive snow clearing in those areas, and then depending how the weather goes by the end of the week, I suspect operations will make the decision whether to focus on catch basin clearing and flood mitigation. But given also our problems with I&I, we are aware that perhaps preemptive clearing as well, even in nice weather, will save us some issues and costs in other ways.
Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. If I may, I have 2 questions through you to the CAO, very quick. One is, to me, the RAP metrics are a great metric, a good KPI. Just wondering, as far as pulling them together, is that an onerous task, or is it fairly straightforward, automated for the most part? And relative to the MVP intake, remind me, do we have a predetermined dollar amount, or has a dollar amount been determined?
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. Going backwards to your questions, the allocation for this grant is $75,000 for the spring intake, and we are planning on $50,000 for the fall intake, but that does depend on a few things, and mainly the subscriber count, which we do see modest growth in, therefore more revenue. So we're hoping perhaps we can bump that fall amount up if we do get residents seeing the value. And to the RAP functionality, right now it's a slightly onerous process. Each main division has a spreadsheet on the back end that they have to track as report problems come in, as they get delegated to certain staff members, generally supervisors of the function, such as public works or utilities, and then we monitor the completion, and everything's shared on our cloud server. But with the work order system, which I believe Director Pedro had mentioned in a previous meeting through Citywide, we are planning to integrate that into hopefully a much more seamless process. It's not terribly onerous, but certainly more onerous I think it needs to be given the technology that exists right now. And so we're hoping by the end of the year to have that streamlined, but still with the same title and interface, so it wouldn't change for the public at all.
Thank you. Any further questions? I'd ask for a motion, please. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that the Chief Administrative Officer report be accepted for information.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. All those in favor? That's carried. We'll move down, please, to our last item for correspondence and information on page 26, please. And if I could get a motion on the floor. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the correspondence and information report ending March 11th, 2024 be received for information.
Thank you. And just for your information, that council has set a date for us to finish this survey, and it will be upcoming after we come back from our caucus this week. And I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Very good. Thank you for spending time and having the patience to be with us today. And I will adjourn the meeting at 1:41 p.m.